Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be exploring self-concept.
Ooh.
It's going to be pretty fascinating, I think. We're going to be unpacking how it forms and the surprising influence it has on your life.
Yeah.
And how you can reshape it, to make your life better.
Right.
So our guide for this deep dive is an excerpt from the book Transforming Yourself.
Okay.
By Steve Andreas. And this book focuses on practical techniques for, like strengthening and transforming your self-concept.
This is, it's a very rich source of information. It's actually drawn from a 3-day workshop that Andreas led.
Wow.
So it's packed with real-world examples and exercises. So
that's great. So we'll be able to...
You'll find some real eye-openers in here for sure.
Perfect. Okay, so let's dive right in. One of the first things that struck me was this idea of self-concept as like an internal map.
Okay.
That guides our choices and our experiences. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Absolutely. Think of it this way. Your self-concept is like a blueprint that you carry around internally.
Okay.
And it shapes how you see yourself and how you see the world.
Right.
It influences everything from your decisions to the relationships that you form.
Oh, well.
And just like a map, it can be accurate and helpful, or it can be flawed and lead you astray.
Oh, interesting. So how does this map actually get created? Like, how do we get to have this?
Yeah, so it's formed through a fascinating process.
Okay.
But it's also somewhat accidental, assembling experiences and beliefs about yourself.
Oh, really?
It's kind of like piecing together a puzzle.
Uh-huh.
But the pieces are often handed to us rather than chosen.
Oh,
what's fascinating is how much of this happens unconsciously,
really?
Influenced by our early experiences.
Okay.
The messages that we get from other people.
Yeah.
And even just societal norms.
So some people might just kind of like end up with a better map than others just by chance.
Yeah, it does.
That almost feels unfair.
It does raise some thought-provoking questions about, the role of luck and circumstance.
Yeah, for sure.
In shaping who we become. But here's the good news.
Okay, good.
Even though the initial formation of our self-concept might be accidental, like you said,
right?
We actually have the power to consciously reshape it.
Okay. That's empowering. I like that.
Throughout our lives. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
But before we get into like how we can actually like transform our self-concept,
yeah,
I'm curious to explore the power it has in our lives. Like, what are some of the ways that our self-concept impacts us on a day-to-day basis?
It really permeates everything. And Andreas really emphasizes how our self-concept operates across time and space.
Okay.
Providing a sense of continuity despite all the changes we go through in life.
Okay.
So even though, your circumstances might change drastically,
right,
the core of who you believe yourself to be
remains relatively stable. So this is why you still feel like you, even as you evolve and grow over time.
Right, right. So it's the thread that connects all the different versions of ourselves throughout our lives.
Exactly.
Okay.
And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Oh.
Your self-concept doesn't just reflect your past, it actually actively shapes your future.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it acts as a feed-forward system.
Okay.
So it's constantly seeking out experiences and information that confirms what you already believe about yourself.
Okay.
This means that your self-concept can either become a self-fulfilling prophecy, attracting experiences that align with your beliefs,
right,
or it can hold you back from reaching your full potential.
So if someone has like a negative self-concept, they might like unconsciously sabotage their own success.
That's
because they just don't believe they deserve it.
That's precisely what Andreas suggests. Yeah. He shares this really captivating story about a soldier who is convinced that he lost his discharge papers.
Oh, no.
And he spends days frantically searching, absolutely certain that they're gone.
Oh, wow.
And it turns out that he had them all along, tucked away safely in his pocket. His belief was so strong that he literally couldn't see what was right in front of him.
Wow. That's such a powerful illustration of how like our beliefs can actually blind us to reality.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder how many opportunities I might have missed out on simply because I didn't believe I was capable or worthy.
It's a question worth pondering for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
And it leads us to a really crucial point that Andreas makes
Okay.
about the relationship between competence and confidence.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Yeah. So Andreas outlines these 4 quadrants of competence and confidence.
Okay.
And what's most compelling is that the combination of low competence and high confidence can actually be the most dangerous.
Really? Why is that?
Well, think about it. If you're overconfident in your abilities, but you actually lack the skills or the knowledge,
Right. You're more likely to take risks that could backfire, not just for you,
yeah,
but for other people as well.
Oh, right.
It's that classic case of, too much ego, not enough expertise.
Right. So like someone who's convinced they're like a brilliant investor, but has no real understanding of the market,
Yeah.
could end up losing a lot of money, not just for themselves, but for anyone who like trusted their advice.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the consequences can extend far beyond financial matters.
Yeah.
So think about someone in a position of power who's overly confident in their decision-making abilities,
Okay.
but lacks the experience or wisdom to make sound judgments.
Oh, yeah.
The impact could be far-reaching,
Yeah.
potentially disastrous.
Right. That's a sobering thought. It makes me think of the quote, "Ignorance, power, and pride are a deadly mixture."
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's...
It's a potent reminder of the importance of cultivating both competence and humility.
Right. And it brings us to a fascinating point that Andreas makes about the nature of a healthy self-concept.
Okay.
He says it often operates largely unconsciously.
Wait, unconsciously. Shouldn't we be, actively aware of who we are?
It might seem counterintuitive, but
Okay.
but here's the thing. When something is working well, we don't need to overthink it. It just flows naturally.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever noticed how your performance can actually decrease when you become overly self-conscious?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I remember when I was learning to play the piano, if I started focusing too much on my technique,
Yeah.
I would tense up and make more mistakes. But when I just let go and allowed myself to get lost in the music,
Right.
my fingers would just flow effortlessly across the keys.
Exactly. It's like when someone tells you, "Don't think about yourself."
Right.
It actually makes you hyper aware of yourself.
It does, yeah.
So a healthy self-concept, according to Andreas, should be like a well-oiled machine humming along in the background,
Right.
freeing up your conscious attention
Right.
to be present in the moment.
So our self-concept should be supporting us rather than distracting us.
Precisely.
Okay, awesome. And this leads us to another important question.
Yeah.
How does a strong sense of self relate to our connection with other people?
Yeah.
There's a common fear that focusing on ourselves leads to separation and isolation.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've definitely heard that perspective before.
Yeah.
But it always felt a bit incomplete to me. It's like, how can we truly connect with others if we don't even understand ourselves?
That's a good point. Yeah.
So Andreas addresses this directly.
Yep.
He emphasizes that a healthy self-concept can actually be the foundation for genuine connection. It's all about how we define that self.
So it's not just about having a strong sense of self. It's about having a healthy and accurate one.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one of the keys, according to Andreas, is to define ourselves through qualities rather than comparisons.
Oh, correct.
So instead of saying, "I'm kinder than Joe," which automatically creates that sense of separation,
Right.
we can focus on cultivating the quality of kindness within ourselves.
Right. So instead of, it's like shifting from a competitive mindset to a collaborative one. Okay. Instead of constantly trying to measure up to others, we can focus on developing our own unique strengths.
Yeah.
And contributing to something larger than ourselves.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Andreas even touches on the mystical idea of eliminating the self.
Oh, wow.
To achieve oneness.
I've always found that concept a bit perplexing.
Yes.
How do we reconcile a strong sense of self with the idea of dissolving the ego?
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? Andreas points out how the concept of self often gets tangled up with self-importance,
Right.
which leads to the comparisons and separation that we were just discussing.
Right. So it's not about getting rid of the self entirely. It's about disentangling it from the egos need to be special or better than others.
Exactly.
Okay.
He offers the example of Ram Dass,
Okay.
a renowned spiritual teacher who was also incredibly grounded in the practical world.
Mm-hmm.
Ram Dass really defied the stereotype of the out-of-touch mystic.
Right.
Demonstrating that deep spiritual understanding and practical competence are not mutually exclusive.
That's a really inspiring example. It shows that we can, like, cultivate a strong sense of self.
Yeah.
Without letting our egos, like, run the show.
Right.
So, okay,
yeah.
Let's get practical. Like, how can we actually start building a new quality or strengthening our self-concept?
So Andreas provides a very specific process for this.
Okay.
And it starts with selecting a quality that you genuinely want to embody. Right. You know, something that resonates with your values and feels authentic to who you are at your core.
So, for example, if someone wanted to cultivate more kindness in their life, that could be their chosen quality.
Exactly.
Right.
And the next step is to identify what Andreas calls the summary representation of that quality.
Okay.
It's essentially the image, sound, or feeling that encapsulates the essence of that quality for you.
So for kindness, it might be like a warm feeling in your chest.
Yeah.
Or a memory of a time you felt like deeply connected to someone, or maybe even a visual image of yourself, like extending a helping hand to someone in need.
Those are great examples.
Okay.
In the workshop, Andreas shares stories of participants who represented their chosen qualities in all sorts of creative and personal ways.
Oh, wow. Some
people used visual images, others used sounds, or even physical sensations. The key is to find a representation that feels authentic and meaningful for you.
Okay, so this is getting really interesting. It's like we're starting to, like, tap into the power of our imaginations.
Yeah.
To, like, shape our realities. So what happens next in the process?
Well, once you have a clear representation of the quality you want to embody, the next step is to build a database of specific examples that support that quality.
So you mean, like, real-life examples of times when you've actually demonstrated that quality.
Precisely.
Okay.
And here's where it gets really fascinating.
Right.
Andreas emphasizes the importance of the number, the location, and the vividness of these examples.
Wait, the location matters too.
It seems so. And it's not just about recalling these examples. It's about how you represent them internally. So Andreas guides participants through exercises where they actually adjust the size, the distance, and the brightness of these examples in their mind's eye. And the results are quite remarkable.
Oh, okay. I'm officially intrigued. Tell me more about these exercises.
Well, some people find that increasing the number of examples makes the quality feel more solid and real. Others discover that bringing the images closer to them makes the quality feel more immediate and present.
Okay.
While some prefer a more panoramic view of their examples, you know, seeing them spread out across a vast landscape. It's all about experimenting and finding what resonates most deeply for you.
This is blowing my mind. I'm starting to see how these, like, seemingly subtle adjustments can actually make a big difference in how we experience ourselves in the world. But I have to ask, what about those times when we don't embody the quality we're, like, working on? What about those counterexamples?
That's a great question. And you know what? Andreas doesn't shy away from counterexamples at all. In fact, he suggests that including them rather than trying to ignore them or suppress them can actually make our self-concept more realistic, adaptable, and less perfectionistic.
That's so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
You'd think we'd want to focus solely on the positive examples.
Right. You would think so, yeah. But Andreas argues that trying to, like, maintain a perfectly curated image of ourselves is not only unrealistic, but it can actually backfire.
Okay, I'm really curious to hear more about this. Like, how does including counterexamples actually help us?
Well, think about it. We all have those moments when we fall short of our ideals, right? It's part of being human.
Yeah.
So by acknowledging those times when we haven't embodied the quality we're working on, we're not denying reality. We're simply expanding our self-concept to include the full spectrum of our experience.
Okay, so instead of, like, beating ourselves up for imperfections, we can actually use them as opportunities for growth and learning.
Exactly. Andreas encourages us to treat those counterexamples with curiosity and compassion, asking ourselves, what can I learn from this experience? Or how can I use this feedback to grow? It's about shifting from a judgmental mindset to a growth mindset.
I see. This is all So incredibly insightful. I'm starting to understand how those parts of ourselves that we might normally try to hide or deny can actually be valuable sources of information and growth.
Right.
But I have to admit, I'm still a bit perplexed about how we actually go about like transforming those negative qualities that we might not like about ourselves.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Okay, good.
And it leads us to one of the most powerful aspects of Andreas's work, which is the process of transforming negative qualities into their positive counterparts. And he offers some really compelling examples in the book. For instance, he talks about a man named Sam who described himself as authoritarian.
Okay.
A quality that he clearly didn't like about himself.
Right. So how did Sam approach transforming that quality?
Well, the first step was to understand what was underlying that authoritarian behavior.
Okay.
And through some guided exploration, Sam realized that he often became authoritarian when he felt stressed and trapped and like he had to control everything to hold things together.
That sounds like a pretty relatable scenario.
Yeah.
I can definitely see how that dynamic could play out in my own life.
Yeah.
So how did Sam go about shifting that pattern?
So Andreas guided him through a process of accessing a feeling of mutual respect, which he represented as a beautiful purple glow.
Okay, purple glow.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
Well, Sam was then able to gradually replace those images of himself being authoritarian with images of himself embodying that feeling of mutual respect.
Okay.
So he started to imagine himself interacting with others in a way that felt calm, collaborative, and empowering.
That's fascinating. It's like he was literally like rewiring the neural pathways in his brain to create like a new way of being.
Yeah.
But how does that like translate into real world behavior?
That's the amazing thing. As Sam began to shift his internal representation of himself, he started to notice changes in his external behavior as well.
Really?
So he found himself naturally responding to situations in a more respectful and collaborative way, even when he felt stressed or pressured.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's not just about like changing our thoughts. It's about changing the like underlying structure of our self-concept.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's what makes this work so powerful. It's about addressing the root of the issue, not just the symptom.
Right. And you know what? Andreas doesn't stop there. He even delves into the concept of the not self.
Yeah.
Which is when someone defines themselves by what they are not rather than what they are.
Yeah.
The not self.
Yeah.
I'm definitely curious about that. What does that look like?
Well, for instance, someone might say, I'm not cruel, instead of saying, I'm kind. They might define themselves as not a liar or not a failure, rather than focusing on the positive qualities that they embody.
I can see how that could be a problem. It's like you're constantly defining yourself in relation to something negative.
Yeah.
Rather than building a positive sense of identity.
Exactly.
Right.
And Andreas highlights the danger of negation.
Okay.
How it creates separation.
Right.
And can even lead to feelings of emptiness or even paranoia.
Paranoia. Wow, that's a pretty extreme consequence.
It is. And he shares this really poignant anecdote about a friend of his who always defined himself through negation.
Okay.
And this friend was constantly worried about what other people thought of him.
Okay.
Convinced that everyone was judging him or talking about him behind his back. And sadly, this friend eventually developed full-blown paranoia.
Oh, wow.
Convinced that everyone was out to get him.
That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
It highlights the importance of being mindful of how we're like talking about ourselves.
Right.
And the kind of stories we're creating in our minds.
Absolutely. And it brings us to another crucial topic.
Okay.
The importance of healthy boundaries.
Boundaries.
Yes. Andreas emphasizes the importance of healthy boundaries, not just in our interactions with others, but also within ourselves.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do you mean by internal boundaries?
Yeah, think of it as a way of protecting ourselves from harmful thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
It's about being able to say, this is me and this is not me.
Okay.
In a healthy way. It's about recognizing that we are not defined by our every thought or emotion.
Right.
We have the power to choose which thoughts we want to entertain and which ones we want to let go of.
So how does this play out in practice?
Andreas shares a great example of a woman named Sandy, who initially described her internal boundary as a rigid box.
Oh.
And she felt trapped and constantly preoccupied with other people's intentions.
I can see how that would be exhausting.
Right. She was constantly trying to control her environment and the people around her because she felt so unsafe and vulnerable.
Right.
And you know what? Through some guided exploration, she was able to transform that rigid box into a radiant golden light.
Wow, what a beautiful image.
Yeah.
And how did that change things for her?
Well, it gave her a sense of clarity and protection, allowing her to be more present in her own experience without feeling so threatened by external influences.
Okay.
So she was able to let go of the need to control everything and everyone around her.
Right.
And as a result, she felt more peaceful and connected to herself and others.
That's a powerful example of how working with our internal representations can actually lead to real world changes.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so this leads us back to the importance of connection.
Yeah.
Which seems like a great place to wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Yeah, I agree. We've covered a lot of ground already.
Yes, we have.
And I'm feeling so inspired by all these insights.
Yeah, me too. But before we move on,
I'd
love to hear your thoughts on how a healthy self-concept can actually foster deeper connection with others.
That's such a great question, and it really gets to the heart of why this work is so important.
Okay.
Andreas believes that true connection often begins with resolving our own internal disconnection.
So it's about recognizing that our internal world is reflected in our external relationships.
Exactly. He shares inspiring examples of people who, after addressing their own inner conflicts, found that their external relationships also began to shift in positive ways.
Oh, wow.
It's like as we become more whole and integrated within ourselves, we naturally attract more harmonious and fulfilling relationships with other people.
That's a beautiful thought. It really emphasizes the ripple effect of this work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
How transforming ourselves can create positive change in all areas of our life.
Precisely. And that brings us to a perfect stopping point for this part of our deep dive.
Cool.
In the next segment, we'll delve deeper into the practical applications of these concepts.
Okay.
And explore how you can start transforming your own self-concept to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Okay, I can't wait to dive back in. This is some seriously mind-blowing stuff.
It is. Welcome back.
Yeah.
I'm excited to continue exploring this fascinating terrain of self-concept with you.
Me too. That last section really got me thinking about how much of my reality is actually shaped by my own beliefs and perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
It's both empowering and a little daunting at the same time.
It is a powerful realization, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it speaks to the transformative potential of this work. If we can understand how our self-concept operates, we can start to consciously shape it to create a more fulfilling and authentic life.
Exactly. So as we dive back into transforming yourself, what are some of the key takeaways that stand out to you?
Well, one of the most important insights is that our self-concept is not fixed.
Yeah.
It's fluid and malleable.
Right.
We can choose how we want to experience ourselves and the world.
That's such a hopeful message.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're not victims of our past experiences.
Yeah.
We have the power to create a new story for ourselves.
Absolutely. And remember, this work is it's a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
It's about ongoing exploration and discovery.
Right.
So be patient with yourself, be curious, and most importantly, have fun with it.
I love that advice. It's a reminder that self-transformation shouldn't feel like a chore.
Yeah.
It should be like an exciting adventure.
Precisely. And here's another important point. Remember that we're not alone in this.
Right.
We all have these internal maps, and we're all navigating the complexities of self-concept.
So it's about finding connection and support as we embark on this journey.
Exactly.
Okay.
So share your insights with others, seek guidance from those who have walked this path before, and remember that we're all in this together. Now, in the last segment, we left off talking about how a healthy self-concept can foster genuine connection with others.
Yes. I'm eager to hear more about that.
Yeah.
It seems paradoxical that focusing on ourselves could lead to deeper connection with others.
It does seem counterintuitive at first, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Andreas makes a compelling case for how a strong sense of self can actually be the foundation for healthy and fulfilling relationships.
So how does that work?
Well, he argues that when we have a clear understanding of who we are, what we value,
Okay.
and what our needs are,
Right.
we're better equipped to communicate authentically,
Okay.
and set healthy boundaries in our relationships. We're less likely to get caught up in codependency or people pleasing,
Right.
because we're not relying on other people to define our worth.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like we can't truly give to others
Yeah.
if we're like constantly depleted and trying to like fill a void within ourselves.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a sense of wholeness and self-love,
Right.
which then overflows into our interactions with others. And it's not just about feeling good about ourselves. It's about having an accurate and realistic self-concept.
Okay. I'm curious about the distinction between feeling good about ourselves and having an accurate self-concept.
That's a great question. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that a positive self-concept is simply about feeling good about ourselves all the time.
Right.
But Andreas emphasizes the importance of accuracy.
Right.
He even suggests that sometimes those qualities that we dislike about ourselves, they actually serve a purpose,
Right.
even if it's not immediately apparent.
Okay, I'm going to need an example for this.
Okay, so he talks about how anger can sometimes be a signal
Right.
that a boundary has been crossed,
Yeah.
or that something needs to change.
No.
It's not necessarily a bad emotion,
Right.
but rather a form of feedback
Right.
that can guide us toward greater authenticity and wholeness.
So it's not about like suppressing those less desirable aspects of ourselves.
Yeah.
It's about like understanding them and integrating them into a more holistic self-concept.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that brings us to another important aspect of this work,
Yep.
the difference between self-concept and behavior.
Okay, well, I'm listening.
Andreas makes a clear distinction between who we are and what we do.
Okay.
It's a reminder that even when we make mistakes,
Right.
or act in ways that don't align with our values,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean we are those things.
That's a really important point. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing that our behavior is just one expression of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't define our entire being.
Precisely. And this ties into his emphasis on self-acceptance.
Okay.
It's not about denying those parts of ourselves that we might not like,
Right.
but rather acknowledging them with compassion and understanding.
So it's about integrating those counterexamples we talked about earlier, not trying to erase them.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that our worthiness is not contingent on our behavior. We are inherently worthy.
Right.
Simply by virtue of being human.
This is all so incredibly empowering. It's
Yeah.
like instead of feeling stuck with a fixed sense of self, we can actually choose how we want to experience ourselves and the world.
That's the beauty of this work. And it brings us to another fascinating point, the role of identification in shaping our self-concept.
Identification, what do you mean by that?
Well, Andreas talks about how we often identify with certain people or groups as
Right.
a way of defining ourselves. It's a natural part of human development,
Okay.
but it can also be limiting
Yeah.
if we're not aware of it.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
Like if we only identify with a certain group of people, we might limit our potential for growth and connection with others who are like different from us.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it can also lead to a sense of inauthenticity.
Right.
If we're trying to fit ourselves into a mold that doesn't truly resonate with who we are.
So how do we work with this tendency to like identify with certain people or groups?
So Andreas suggests exploring how we're representing these people or groups in our minds.
Okay.
So what qualities are we drawn to?
Right.
What values are we aligning with?
Okay.
And perhaps most importantly, are these identifications serving us? Or are they holding us back from fully expressing who we are?
So it's about becoming more conscious of the influences that are like shaping our self-concept and choosing the ones that align with our authentic selves.
Exactly. And it's not about rejecting those influences altogether,
right?
But rather choosing which ones we want to cultivate,
right,
and which ones we want to let go of.
This is starting to feel like a real journey of self-discovery.
Yeah,
it's like we're peeling back the layers to uncover the truest, most authentic version of ourselves.
It is a journey of self-discovery. And you know what's really cool? Andreas even touches on the idea of identifying with aspects of ourselves,
right,
that we might normally reject.
Like those counterexamples we were talking about earlier.
Precisely.
Okay.
He shares an example of how he overcame his repulsion to a scene of violence in a movie.
Okay.
By actually identifying with the perpetrator.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That sounds intense.
It was, but through that process, he realized that his own impulse to torture came from a place of feeling helpless and powerless.
Wow.
And by understanding that connection, he was able to release his judgment and see the situation with greater compassion.
That's a powerful example of how expanding our capacity for identification can actually lead to greater understanding and even forgiveness, not just for others, but also for ourselves.
It is a powerful practice, and it highlights how interconnected we all are, even with those aspects of ourselves or others that we might find challenging or even repulsive.
Right.
And it speaks to the transformative power of empathy and compassion in healing our own internal divisions and creating a more harmonious world.
This is all so incredibly insightful. I'm already starting to feel a shift in my own self-concept just by engaging with these ideas.
That's wonderful to hear. And that's the beauty of this work. It's not just about acquiring knowledge. It's about actually transforming our experience from the inside out.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are some key takeaways for our listeners, who might be feeling inspired to start working on their own self-concept?
First and foremost, remember that change is possible. Our self-concept is not fixed. It's fluid and malleable. We can choose how we want to experience ourselves and the world.
That's such a hopeful message. It's a reminder that we're not victims of our past experiences. We have the power to create a new story for ourselves.
Exactly. And remember, this work is a journey, not a destination. It's about ongoing exploration and discovery. Be patient with yourself, be curious, and most importantly, have fun with it.
I love that advice. It's a reminder that self-transformation shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be like an exciting adventure. So what are some practical steps our listeners can take to embark on this journey of self-discovery?
Well, one of the simplest yet most powerful practices is self-reflection.
Okay.
So take some time each day to sit quietly and observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
Right.
Just notice how you talk to yourself, the stories you tell yourself, and the beliefs that are shaping your experience.
That sounds like a great starting point. It's about cultivating awareness of our internal landscape, before we try to change anything.
Exactly. And as you become more aware of your self-talk and your internal representations, you can start to experiment with the techniques we've discussed.
Okay.
So play with adjusting the size, the distance, the brightness of those images and sensations. Notice how even subtle shifts in your internal representations can create tangible changes in your experience.
And remember those counterexamples.
Yes.
Instead of trying to suppress them, bring them into the light of your awareness.
Yeah.
And see what you can learn from them.
Treat them as valuable feedback rather than failures.
Right.
Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience?
Right.
Or how can I use this feedback to grow?
This is all so incredibly empowering.
It is, yeah.
It's like we have a whole toolkit at our disposal for shaping our self-concept and creating a more fulfilling life. But before we get too carried away with all the possibilities, I think it's important to acknowledge that this work can also be challenging at times.
You're absolutely right. It's not always easy to face those parts of ourselves that we might not like,
Right.
or to challenge deeply ingrained beliefs that have been shaping our reality for years.
Wow. All right. So what advice would you give to someone who's feeling a bit overwhelmed or discouraged by this process?
First and foremost, be kind to yourself.
Okay.
Remember that this is a journey, not a race.
Right.
There's no need to rush or to force anything. Take your time.
Right.
Be patient with yourself.
Okay.
And celebrate even the smallest victories.
And remember that you're not alone in this. There are countless resources available to support you on this journey: books, workshops, therapists, coaches, and online communities.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to reach out for support when you need it. Sharing your journey with others can be incredibly validating and empowering. And remember, even the most experienced practitioners,
Right.
they have their own struggles and setbacks. It's all part of the process.
That's such a reassuring reminder. It's like even the experts are still works in progress.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'd love to hear your thoughts on one final question that really struck me from Transforming Yourself.
Okay.
Andreas reminds us that all of reality, including our relationships, ultimately exists inside our brains.
Well, that's a big one.
It is. So the question is, how can this perspective help us to create more connection and understanding? And that's where we'll pick up in the next segment.
That's a fantastic question to ponder, and I'm eager to explore it further with you. See you soon.
Welcome back to the deep dive. In the last segment, we left off with a pretty mind-blowing question.
Yeah.
If all of reality, including our relationships, exists inside our brains, how can this perspective help us to create more connection and understanding?
It is a profound question, isn't it? It challenges our assumptions about where reality resides and how much control we actually have over our experiences.
It really does. So how can we use this understanding to foster deeper connection with others?
Well, for me, it highlights the importance of recognizing that everyone we encounter is experiencing reality through the lens of their own unique self-concept. Their thoughts, feelings, and reactions are all filtered through their own internal map of the world.
So instead of like judging someone for their behavior or assuming we understand their motivations, we can approach them with curiosity and compassion, recognizing that their reality might look very different from our own.
Exactly. It's about cultivating empathy and recognizing the inherent subjectivity of experience. And it's about understanding that we don't have to agree with someone's perspective to respect their right to have it.
That's such a valuable reminder. It's so easy to like get caught up in our own rightness and judge others for not seeing things the way we do.
Yeah.
But this perspective invites us to like step back and recognize that there's no one right way to experience the world.
Exactly. And invites us to approach our relationships with a sense of humility and open-mindedness, recognizing that we always have more to learn from each other.
It's like we're all on our own unique journeys and our paths intersect in these beautiful and sometimes messy ways.
I love that analogy. And it reminds us that connection is not about trying to like merge or become the same.
Right.
It's about honoring our differences while recognizing our shared humanity.
That's so beautiful. And it brings us back to those criteria for a healthy self-concept that we discussed earlier. Durability, accuracy, self-correction, unconscious operation, connection, and freedom from self-importance.
Yes. Those are all essential elements. And for me, that last one, freedom from self-importance, really stands out in relation to this question of connection.
I agree. It seems counterintuitive that letting go of self-importance could actually enhance our relationships. But I'm sensing a connection here. Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Of course. So when we're caught up in self-importance, our focus is constantly on ourselves. Our needs, our wants, our image, or accomplishment. It's like we're building a wall around ourselves, cutting ourselves off from genuine connection with others.
It's like we're too preoccupied with our own internal monologue to like truly listen to and engage with others.
Exactly. And it creates a dynamic of competition and comparison,
right,
where we're constantly trying to prove ourselves or measure up to other people.
So how do we cultivate this freedom from self-importance? It sounds like a pretty challenging task, especially in a culture that often glorifies individualism and achievement.
It is a challenging practice, but it's a practice nonetheless. And it starts with recognizing our inherent worthiness simply by virtue of being human. It's about letting go of the need to prove ourselves and embracing a more humble and interconnected perspective.
That's so powerful. It's about recognizing that our worth is not contingent on our accomplishments or our status, but simply on our existence.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting?
Right.
Andreas suggests that true self-confidence often arises from this place of humility.
Okay, now that's counterintuitive. I always thought confidence was about like feeling superior to others or believing we're better than them in some way.
That's the ego's version of confidence, which is actually quite fragile.
Right.
It's dependent on external validation and comparison. True confidence, on the other hand, is grounded in a deep sense of self-acceptance and an understanding that we are all interconnected.
That makes so much sense. It's about recognizing that we are all perfectly imperfect beings.
Yeah.
Each with our own unique gifts to offer the world.
Exactly. And when we embrace this perspective, we can release the need to compare ourselves to other people and simply focus on being the best version of ourselves.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I'm starting to understand how working with our self-concept can like ripple out into all areas of our lives, our relationships, our work, our sense of purpose, even our experience of reality itself.
And that's the transformative power of this work. It's not just about changing our thoughts or behaviors. It's about shifting our fundamental perception of who we are and what's possible.
And that's a journey we can all embark on.
Yeah.
No matter where we're starting from, we have the power to transform ourselves and create a more fulfilling life.
Exactly. And remember, this work is a process, not a destination. Be patient with yourself, be curious, and keep exploring the incredible potential that lies within you.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights with us today. It's been such an inspiring deep dive into the world of self-concept.
It's been my absolute pleasure. I'm always thrilled to explore these profound topics and witness the transformative journeys that unfold when people start to consciously engage with their self-concept.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us in this adventure of self-discovery. We hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore the incredible power you hold within to shape your reality and create a more fulfilling life. Until next time, keep diving deep.